When I was a child, I often wondered why people around me, no matter how successful or strong they appeared, always seemed to carry invisible wounds. Some were weighed down by old memories, some by sickness, and some by a loneliness they couldn't name. I used to think healing was only about medicine, about pills and doctors, until I stumbled upon something far more profound. It was during a quiet evening when I first opened a book of Buddhist stories. The words weren't loud or commanding. They were gentle, like a whisper of the wind through bamboo leaves. Yet, they stirred something inside me. It felt as if I had discovered a secret doorway, one that led not outward, but inward, a place of natural healing I had never known existed. Years later, when life grew heavier with responsibilities, I found myself searching again for that doorway. I had wounds, too not always visible on my skin, but heavy in my heart and mind. The stress, the restless nights, the moments when I felt disconnected from myself, they all kept returning. And in those moments, I remembered the old stories of Buddhist monks who healed not by chasing after remedies outside, but by awakening the medicine already within. I wondered if I could do the same. Could I learn from those ancient practices to bring balance back into my life? Could I heal myself naturally without waiting for the world to fix me? The journey began with small steps. At first, it was as simple as sitting quietly and noticing my breath, just breathing in, breathing out with awareness. Something so small, and yet it began to calm me in ways no quick solution ever had. It felt like my body had been waiting for me to remember it, to listen to it. Slowly, I began to see that healing was not a race, but a gentle return home. That realization lit a fire of curiosity in me. I wanted to learn more, not only for myself, but for anyone who, like me, had ever felt lost or broken. That's why I want to share this story with you. Because I believe we all carry within us a hidden wisdom, an ancient capacity for healing that our ancestors knew well, but we've forgotten. The practices I'll share with you come from Buddhist and Eastern traditions, passed down for centuries, tested in the lives of countless seekers. They are not complicated. You don't need expensive tools or exotic journeys or anyone else's permission. All you need is the willingness to pause, to listen, and to open yourself to what is already within you. Tonight, as you listen, imagine that I'm not just telling you about these practices, but inviting you to walk alongside me. Picture yourself not as a passive listener, but as a traveler stepping into a temple of silence, where the air is scented with incense and the sound of a single bell echoes gently. This is not just a video. This is a journey, a chance to reconnect with a part of yourself that knows how to heal. And if you stay with me until the end, you might find that the healing you've been searching for has always been waiting quietly inside your own heart. So, let us begin. When I first began to study Buddhist teachings, I realized that what they call healing is far broader than what I had imagined. It is not just the absence of illness or pain, nor is it a quick fix to a restless mind. Healing, in Buddhist understanding, is the restoration of harmony between body, mind, and spirit. It is about recognizing the subtle imbalances that pull us away from our natural state of peace and learning how to bring ourselves gently back into alignment. I remember feeling both intrigued and skeptical at first. How could ancient practices, often so simple and quiet, achieve something that modern medicine seemed to struggle with? But the more I observed, the more I saw the wisdom embedded in every small detail of these teachings. Buddhism teaches that the mind and body are not separate. They are intertwined like two threads in the same fabric. Stress in the mind manifests as tension in the body. Anger or worry affects digestion, sleep, even the immune system. Conversely, caring for the body through posture, breathing, and movement calms the mind and nourishes the spirit. I recall a story about a monk who, despite suffering a severe injury, remained peaceful and eventually recovered fully. His secret was not in the medicine applied to his wound, but in the mindful attention he paid to his body, the awareness of his breath, and the gentle acceptance of pain rather than resistance. That lesson stayed with me. Healing begins not by fighting what is, but by understanding it deeply and responding with wisdom and care. Another core idea I learned is that self-healing is rooted in compassion, both for ourselves and for the world around us. In daily life, we are often harsh critics of our own thoughts and emotions. We push ourselves to perform, to meet expectations, to ignore the quiet signals of our body and mind. Buddhist teachings invite a different approach, to treat oneself with the same kindness and patience we would offer to a dear friend in pain. This simple shift in perspective, I discovered, has an immediate and profound impact. When I started approaching my own discomfort with curiosity rather than fear, I began noticing changes, less tension, more clarity, a subtle sense of restoration. Healing became less about forcing an outcome and more about cultivating an environment within myself where natural balance could flourish. The Buddhist approach also emphasizes the importance of awareness or mindfulness as a tool for self-healing. Every action, every thought, every breath can either nourish or deplete our energy. By observing these patterns without judgment, we gain insight into what truly helps us and what drains us. I began keeping a simple practice of noticing my body's signals during the day, my posture, my breathing, moments of tension or calm. Over time, I could anticipate when stress was building and take conscious steps to restore balance. It felt like learning a language that my body and mind had always spoken, but I had never truly listened to. This awareness, I realized, is the foundation of all the healing practices I would later explore. Finally, I learned that healing in Buddhist philosophy is an ongoing journey rather than a destination. It is not about curing everything at once, but about fostering a continuous dialogue between our inner wisdom and our daily actions. The body, mind, and spirit are like a garden. Neglected weeds of stress, worry, and fatigue grow. Cared for, the seeds of vitality, peace, and clarity blossom. I began to see that even small, consistent practices, whether a few minutes of mindful breathing, a simple meditation, or a gesture of compassion, can create profound shifts over time. Healing is a living process, and the more we participate consciously, the more our natural balance emerges. This understanding transformed my approach to life. No longer did I wait for external solutions to bring relief. I started exploring the practices that had been cultivated by countless generations of Buddhist practitioners, not as exotic rituals, but as practical tools to restore the wholeness that is our birthright. Each practice is a doorway into the body, mind, and heart, a method of awakening the inherent capacity for self-healing that resides within us all. And as I began to experience these subtle changes, I understood something deeply. The wisdom of Buddhist self-healing is not a distant philosophy, is a living, breathing guide, ready to be practiced, experienced, and integrated into the rhythm of everyday life. Through this lens, I realized that natural healing is not about eliminating difficulties or discomfort. It is about learning to move with life's challenges, nurturing resilience, and returning to balance with gentleness and patience. The journey is intimate, deeply personal, and yet universally accessible. And in that moment, I knew that the next steps of my exploration, the 7 ancient practices I would later embrace, were not just techniques, but invitations to rediscover the harmony that had always existed within me, waiting quietly for me to listen. The first time I decided to put Buddhist self-healing teachings into practice, I began with the simplest, most accessible methods, those that require nothing more than awareness, patience, and a willingness to listen to oneself. The first 3 practices I explored opened a new world of subtle but powerful healing. Each practice was a small doorway, yet stepping through them slowly began to shift my sense of balance, peace, and vitality. The first practice was mindful breathing, known as NP Si in Buddhist tradition. At first, I thought it would be too simple to have any real effect. I would sit quietly, focusing on the natural rhythm of my breath, inhaling deeply, exhaling slowly, and noticing the sensations in my body. Within days, I began to notice subtle changes. Tension in my shoulders started to ease. My mind felt less scattered, and moments of inner calm began to appear in the midst of a busy day. But the true magic wasn't just in relaxation. Mindful breathing taught me to observe without judgment, to notice the restless thoughts, the stress, the aches, and the emotions without immediately reacting. I realized that much of the pain we feel is amplified by our resistance. Simply acknowledging discomfort with awareness, letting it exist for a moment without fighting it, began to dissolve its intensity. This simple, breath-centered practice became the foundation of everything that followed. The second practice was walking meditation, or kinhin. I had always thought of meditation as something done only while sitting in a quiet room. But walking meditation revealed the hidden potential of movement as a healing tool. I would walk slowly, deliberately, feeling each step as if my feet were pressing into the earth for the very first time. With each step, I focused on the shifting of weight, the movement of muscles, and the rhythm of my body. At first, it felt awkward, almost comical, moving so slowly when the world around me rushed past. But gradually, I felt a sense of grounding I had never experienced before. The mind, which was often tangled in worries and plans, began to settle naturally. The simple act of walking mindfully became a way to release accumulated stress, to reconnect with my body, and to remind myself that healing doesn't always require stillness. Sometimes it comes from moving with conscious presence. The third practice was compassionate reflection. Inspired by metta bhavana, the cultivation of loving kindness. This was perhaps the most transformative for me. Sitting quietly, I began to silently repeat phrases of goodwill, first toward myself, then extending outward to loved ones, acquaintances, and even those I found challenging. I would silently say, "May I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be safe, may I live with ease," and gradually send the same wishes to others. At first, the words felt mechanical, almost awkward, but over time, I began to feel a warmth spreading through my chest. I noticed how much of my own stress and anxiety was tied to self-criticism, fear, and subtle judgments. By cultivating compassion, I was softening those internal barriers. This practice reminded me that healing is not only about the body or the mind, it is also about the heart. Forgiving ourselves, offering kindness inwardly, and extending it outward creates a ripple that restores balance at a profound level. As I continued these three practices, I observed a pattern emerging. Each one, though different in method, shared a common essence: awareness, presence, and intentionality. Mindful breathing taught me to notice and accept. Walking meditation taught me to embody awareness through movement. And compassionate reflection taught me to cultivate emotional resilience through heartful intention. Together, they became a powerful triad, laying the groundwork for deeper practices I would later explore. I also began noticing changes in my daily life. Stress no longer felt like an overpowering force. Moments of irritation or anxiety became opportunities to pause, breathe, and choose a conscious response. Sleep improved, not instantly, but gradually, as my mind and body learned to settle into a gentler rhythm. Even physical aches, small tensions in the shoulders or back, would lessen simply because I was attending to them with patience and awareness, rather than pushing through or ignoring them. These practices showed me that healing is not a single event, a miraculous cure, or a dramatic shift. It is subtle, cumulative, and profoundly accessible when approached with mindfulness and intention. What struck me most was how interconnected these practices were. They did not function in isolation. Mindful breathing made walking meditation more vivid. Compassionate reflection enriched both the breath and the steps with deeper awareness. The integration of these practices began to create a quiet harmony within me. Even my relationships subtly shifted, as I noticed myself responding with more patience and understanding, both toward others and toward myself. The ripple effect of these small, disciplined actions extended far beyond the moments I dedicated to practice. I remember one particular evening when I sat by the window, watching the sunset after a full day of work and obligations. I had spent the morning walking mindfully in the garden, the afternoon observing my breath in meditation, and the evening quietly sending compassionate thoughts to friends and strangers alike. For the first time in years, I felt an undeniable sense of inner peace and natural balance, a calm center that felt untouchable even as the world rushed around me. It was in that stillness I truly understood that these practices were not just rituals, they were keys to unlock the natural healing potential that resides in every human being. These first three practices became my foundation, my daily refuge, and my guide. I learned that self-healing is not a distant goal or a mysterious art. It is a living, breathing path, starting with a simple awareness of breath, the conscious steps we take, and the cultivation of a heart that embraces kindness. And as I continued on this journey, I realized that these initial practices were just the beginning. There were still 4 more ancient methods I had yet to explore, each promising its own unique form of restoration, insight, and balance. Through these first 3 practices, I felt a quiet confidence grow within me that the power to heal, to restore, and to find balance was not somewhere outside, but had always existed inside, waiting for me to pause, to notice and to nurture it. I felt as if I had uncovered the first chapters of an ancient, living book, written not on paper, but within the rhythm of breath, the steps of the body, and the expansiveness of the heart. And with each day of practice, I began to step further into a life where healing was not just an act, but a state of being, an intimate, ongoing conversation with my own body, mind, and spirit. By the end of the first month of integrating these practices, I realized that what had once seemed simple or even trivial had transformed into something profound. Mindful breathing, walking meditation, and compassionate reflection were no longer just exercises. They had become companions, guiding me back to myself, nurturing my resilience, and illuminating the path toward the natural balance and inner peace I had long been searching for. Healing, I learned, is not found in extraordinary measures or distant remedies. It is discovered in the quiet, deliberate, and loving attention we give to ourselves each day. These three practices, though ancient and simple, opened a doorway to a life where balance, awareness, and compassion could coexist. And from this doorway, I knew that the journey of the remaining practices would only deepen the harmony I had begun to cultivate. After experiencing the profound effects of the first three practices, I felt a quiet excitement to continue my journey. The foundation of mindful breathing, walking meditation, and compassionate reflection had already begun to shift my inner landscape, and I sensed that the remaining four practices would unlock even deeper layers of healing and balance. These practices were subtle yet potent and required an open heart and consistent attention. I approached them with patience, curiosity, and a willingness to let go of expectations. The fourth practice I embraced was body awareness meditation, or kaya sati. Unlike mindful breathing, which focused primarily on the breath, body awareness meditation invited me to explore every sensation, tension, and energy within my body. I would lie down or sit comfortably and systematically bring my attention to each part of my body: feet, legs, torso, arms, shoulders, neck, and head. I noticed areas of tightness, discomfort, or numbness, but instead of resisting them, I allowed them to be. I visualized warmth and energy flowing into these areas, gently dissolving blockages. Initially, this felt strange. I was not used to truly listening to my body with patience and compassion. But slowly, I began to notice remarkable changes. My posture improved, my energy became steadier throughout the day, and subtle aches I had long ignored started to ease. More importantly, I realized that my body had been waiting for my attention all along, silently signaling when it needed care, and by listening, I was partnering with my own natural healing intelligence. The fifth practice was mindful eating, a simple yet transformative approach called sati boyana. In the past, meals were rushed and often mindless, eaten in front of screens or while multitasking. Buddhist teachings encouraged me to slow down and fully experience each bite, noticing the color, texture, aroma, and taste of the food, feeling gratitude for the nourishment it provided. I started to observe how food affected my energy, mood, and mental clarity. Eating became a form of meditation, an intimate connection with life's abundance, and a conscious choice to honor my body. Over time, I found that mindful eating not only improved digestion and energy, but also fostered a deeper appreciation for the present moment. It was a practice that grounded me, reminding me that healing involves respecting and nurturing the body as a sacred vessel. The sixth practice I explored was chanting and sound meditation, or mantra, sadhana. I had always been skeptical of chanting, thinking it was merely ritualistic. But I quickly discovered its profound effect on the mind and spirit. By softly repeating ancient sounds or phrases, such as the vibrations resonated through my body, calming my nervous system and opening a space of inner stillness. Each session of chanting felt like tuning an instrument, aligning my body, mind, and energy in harmony. This practice also cultivated a sense of connection, connecting with generations of practitioners who had used these sounds to heal, and connecting with a larger rhythm of life itself. It was a reminder that sound carries a subtle yet powerful medicine that transcends words and intellect. The seventh and final practice was mindful journaling, a form of reflective meditation that encouraged me to observe my thoughts, emotions, and experiences without judgment. Each day, I would write down what I noticed about my body, my reactions, my successes, and my struggles. The act of putting thoughts into words created clarity and allowed me to see patterns that I had previously ignored. I began to recognize triggers for stress, moments of joy, and areas where I was holding myself back. Journaling became a dialogue with myself, a sacred space where healing insights could emerge naturally. Over time, I could trace the subtle shifts in my mindset, emotional resilience, and overall well-being. It taught me that self-healing is not only physical or energetic, it is also deeply cognitive and emotional, requiring honest reflection and self-understanding. Integrating these four practices alongside the first three created a holistic system of self-healing that touched every aspect of my being. I noticed that each practice reinforced the others. Mindful breathing supported body awareness and chanting. Walking meditation heightened awareness during journaling. Compassionate reflection deepened the gratitude in mindful eating. The synergy of these 7 practices created a sense of balance and inner harmony I had never experienced before. I began to feel more grounded in daily life, less reactive to stress, and more attuned to the subtle signals of my body and mind. I also observed changes beyond the personal level. Relationships improved as I became more patient and empathetic. Decisions felt clearer because my mind was less cluttered and more present. Even creativity and intuition seemed to flourish as I could access deeper states of calm and clarity. What had begun as a personal experiment turned into a profound transformation, revealing the incredible capacity we all have for self-healing. I remember one evening, sitting quietly after a full day of practice. I had walked mindfully in the morning, focused on my breath in the afternoon, chanted in the evening, and reflected in my journal before bed. There was a stillness that enveloped me, a gentle, pervasive sense of well-being that was not dependent on external circumstances. I realized that the practices were not magic spells. The true medicine was my consistent attention, awareness, and intention. By cultivating these ancient methods, I had learned to awaken the natural healing potential that had always existed within me. Through this journey, I came to understand a profound truth. Healing is not an event, but a relationship with oneself, with the present moment, and with the world around us. Each of the 7 practices, though rooted in ancient Buddhist wisdom, is entirely accessible to anyone willing to engage with patience, presence, and compassion. They are tools to restore balance, to nurture vitality, and to reconnect with the innate harmony that exists within every human being. As I continued to integrate these practices into my daily life, I noticed a quiet resilience taking root. Challenges still came, but they no longer overwhelmed me. Pain and discomfort appeared, but I met them with awareness and care rather than resistance. The 7 ancient practices became more than routines. They became a living way of being, a pathway to inner peace, natural balance, and enduring self-healing. And as I reflect on the journey, I realize that the most remarkable discovery is this: the power to heal, to restore, and to thrive has always been within me, quietly waiting to be awakened through mindful attention, compassionate intention, and the gentle practice of these timeless methods. After months of practicing the 7 ancient Buddhist healing methods, I began to notice subtle but profound shifts in how I approached my modern life. At first, I was skeptical. Could practices developed centuries ago truly make a difference in a world dominated by screens, deadlines, and constant noise? But as I experimented, I realized that these methods were not bound by time or culture. They were universal tools for restoring balance and nurturing inner well-being. The challenge was not in learning them, but in integrating them seamlessly into the rhythm of everyday life. I started with mindful breathing. Even during the busiest work days, I would take a few conscious breaths before responding to emails or stepping into meetings. In moments of tension or stress, simply pausing and observing my breath allowed me to respond with clarity rather than react impulsively. It was remarkable how such a simple practice could transform pressure-filled situations into opportunities for calm and thoughtful action. Over time, I noticed that this small adjustment reduced my anxiety and gave me a sense of control over my responses, even when external circumstances were chaotic. Walking meditation became surprisingly easy to weave into daily routines. Instead of rushing from one task to another, I began taking slow, intentional steps while moving through my apartment, office, or even outdoors during brief breaks. By focusing on the sensations of walking, the contact of my feet with the ground, and the rhythm of movement, I created micro-moments of grounding throughout the day. These pauses, even if only a minute or too long, allowed my mind to reset and my body to release accumulated tension. I found that by incorporating this practice into daily activities, I could maintain a sense of presence and energy that had previously been elusive. Compassionate reflection transformed my interactions with others. When conflicts or misunderstandings arose, I would pause and silently extend goodwill toward myself and the other person. Phrases like, "May we both find peace," or "May I respond with patience and understanding," became habitual mental tools that softened my emotional reactions. I noticed that this practice not only reduced my internal stress, but also improved my relationships. People seemed more receptive, conversations felt calmer, and I was less likely to carry lingering resentment. The principle of self-compassion, once reserved for meditation sessions, had become a practical guide for everyday social dynamics. Body awareness meditation revealed its utility in the context of modern sedentary life. Long hours at a desk often left my shoulders stiff and my back tense. But by periodically checking in with my body, I could identify areas of strain and consciously release them. Even simple adjustments, strolling the shoulders, stretching the neck, or consciously relaxing the jaw had a significant effect. Over time, I noticed improvements in posture, energy levels, and overall comfort. This practice reminded me that self-healing requires active attention, and that the body communicates clearly if we are willing to listen. Mindful eating became an unexpected source of joy and energy. Instead of eating quickly between tasks, I began to savor each bite, noticing flavors, textures, and aromas. By slowing down, I realized how often I had ignored the signals of hunger and fullness, which had contributed to fatigue and digestive discomfort. Mindful eating allowed me to connect with nourishment in a new way, appreciating food as a source of vitality rather than a mere convenience. I also found that it encouraged healthier choices naturally, because I was more attentive to how food affected my energy and well-being, chanting, and sound. Meditation fit surprisingly well into my modern routine. Early mornings or late evenings became moments for gentle chanting, even if only for a few minutes. The vibrations created a sense of calm that lingered throughout the day or night, grounding me in moments of chaos and uncertainty. I realize that sound, rhythm, and repetition can carry profound healing energy, helping to reset the nervous system and restore a sense of equilibrium. Finally, mindful journaling became both a reflective and proactive tool. I began noting my thoughts, emotions, and experiences daily, identifying patterns and triggers that affected my energy and mood. This practice helped me plan my days more consciously, align my actions with my intentions, and recognize subtle improvements over time. Journaling became a mirror of my inner world, showing me where healing had taken root and where attention was still needed. What struck me most was how these ancient practices, when applied consistently, created a synergy that transformed everyday life. Stressful situations no longer felt overwhelming. Minor physical discomforts were addressed before they escalated. Emotional turbulence became manageable. The teachings were not a set of rigid rules, but flexible tools, adaptable to any lifestyle, environment, or pace. I discovered that modern life, with all its demands and distractions, is not incompatible with ancient wisdom, is precisely the arena where mindful self-healing becomes most valuable. Through consistent practice, I learn that self-healing is not an isolated act. It is a continuous dialogue with oneself. Every breath, step, bite, chant, and reflection becomes an opportunity to cultivate awareness, compassion, and balance. By bringing these practices into daily routines, I found a profound sense of empowerment. The realization that no matter the chaos outside, there is always a sanctuary within. This sanctuary, nurtured through the 7 ancient practices, became my refuge, my source of energy, and my guide through the challenges of modern life. Ultimately, these practices taught me that healing is not about escaping the world or avoiding its pressures. It is about meeting life with presence, resilience, and grace. The wisdom of Buddhist self-healing is timeless, offering tools to cultivate well-being, inner peace, and natural balance in any era. And in embracing these methods, I discovered that the capacity to heal, restore, and thrive has always been quietly waiting within me, ready to be awakened with mindful attention. 'Cause I reflect on this journey, I realize that the 7 ancient Buddhist healing practices are more than techniques. They are invitations to slow down, to listen deeply to ourselves, and to reconnect with the natural wisdom that has always existed within. These practices remind us that healing is not about rushing toward an endpoint or waiting for external circumstances to change. It is about cultivating presence, awareness, and compassion in every moment. Even the smallest daily steps, pausing to breathe, walking mindfully, showing kindness to oneself, or observing the body's signals can create profound shifts over time. The true power of these practices lies in their accessibility. You don't need special tools, elaborate rituals, or external validation. All you need is a willingness to begin, to experiment, and to return gently when your mind wanders. Each practice is a seed, and with consistent attention, these seeds grow into resilience, clarity, and inner peace. What I experienced is not unique. It is available to anyone willing to engage with patience and curiosity. The transformation comes not from perfection, but from commitment to presence and care. I invite you now to take the first step. Choose one of these practices, perhaps mindful breathing or compassionate reflection, and dedicate a few minutes today to fully experience it. Notice the sensations, the shifts in your mind, and the subtle restoration within your body. Allow yourself to explore, to adapt, and to grow. Healing is a journey, and every conscious step moves you closer to natural balance, inner peace, and self-empowerment. Begin today, and let these timeless practices guide you toward the harmony that has always been waiting inside and consistent practice.